Hello, welcome guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome to Brewing It Live. I'm Lotus, one of the hosts from Into the 99. Today I have two people brewing with me. I have my usual Han and another host from Into the 99. Say hey, Zach.
Say hey, Zach.
So, you came to us with a challenge of a commander.
Yes.
So you brought us Uwao, the Silent Prophet.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So anyone unfamiliar with this card, because it's back from a commander set, but it's also from, I believe, Kamigawa. It's 4 blue for a Moonfolk wizard. Flying 4/4, and pay 2 generic. Return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. That's an odd one.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you choose that?
So, if you guys listen to our podcast, you know there are three things that I love to do. I love to reanimate, I love to steal things, and I love to copy things. And this is one of my big three. I get to copy things from this, and I've always really liked the Moonfolk as like a creature type. I remember when I first started playing Commander, and I would go to like some of the LGSs. There's this guy who had this Mikakoro deck that I thought was super interesting because I'd never seen Moonfolk before, and they do a lot of really like weird things, like Uau here being able to return lands and you get to do something for it. It just seems like a really cool mono blue commander that can do a lot of really interesting things. And what I like about Brewing It Live is my idea of what I want to do is probably going to be vastly different than both of your guys' idea. So hopefully I can come up with we can come up with a deck that I can end up using to beat you guys in the near future.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, yeah, our brew styles are weird, and Han has
Mhm.
caught me off guard a few times.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about a giant mill deck.
Yeah, it was a giant pile of mill. What do you want me to say?
I didn't know where I was getting off on that train.
I thought it was funny. Yeah, I was recently introduced to a lot of those Kamigawa commander cards in general. Was it Ashen? Yeah, he
Ashen
just
loves the
introduced us to
block.
Kamigawa Tribal, and I got to see basically all the great hits of the set. So yeah, that was
it's
it.
really it's really cool because like from what I've seen, all the Moonfolk have this type of ability where you pay a certain amount of mana, return a certain number of lands, and then something happens. It's kind of weird because it's in blue, and that's not very ramp color, even though like you definitely can ramp in blue. So I think that's kind of why this commander, also being 6 CMC, is kind of rough. But I think that's why this kind of commander doesn't see a lot of play. But it's also why I think this commander is very interesting to build around because it's just an ability you don't see very often. You know.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah.
So I was looking at this commander, and I instantly found a cool little interaction with this card. And I'm not sure if you have seen it before. So if I was to give you 2 cards, so the first card that I'm going to give you is Retreat to Coral Helm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Retreat to Coral Helm is a enchantment with Landfall for 2 and a blue. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, choose 1. You may tap or untap target creature or scry 1.
Ooh,
Now,
can I guess?
Lotus. I'm
Can
sorry.
I
Go
guess
ahead,
the
Zach.
next card?
Can you
Can I guess
guess?
the next card?
Go on then.
Is it Walking Atlas?
It is Walking Atlas.
Ah, yes. Okay, cool.
So Walking Atlas is a construct 1/1 for 2 mana. Tap, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So in essence, you can play your return your 2 lands, tap Walking Atlas to put 1 in, untap Walking Atlas, and put the other one in, and just keep cycling it.
Yep.
Okay, so
Uh,
I'll be 100% real with you. I didn't even think about Retreat to Corahelm. And on my list, I had Walking Atlas because I want to put as many lands into play as possible, as often as possible. But now that I know that's a thing, that's something I'm gonna have to do because that's just that's too cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Retreat to Coral Helm is just a perfect fit for that. I do think that we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here.
I
Does
know.
anybody here happen to have any kind of, oh, I don't know, pre-game effects that may be going into this deck? We are in blue.
Are you pointing to me?
I mean, I got to go over Zach today, but yes, I'm
Yeah.
pointing to you.
A ley line of anticipation. You may cast spells as though they had flash. And if it's in our opening hand, we can reveal it and start with it on the battlefield.
There we go. Now we can continue with the with the brewing, I think.
Now that's out the way.
Yeah. Now that being said, I actually have a card that went hand in hand with that. I was thinking along the lines of a Time Spiral reprint that's coming up. We have Dreamscape Artist. I don't know if that's on either of your guys' radar, but Dreamscape Artist, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 human spell shaper. I'm sorry. 2 and a blue, and you tap it, and you discard a card, sacrifice a land, and you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, shuffle your library. These do not come in tapped.
A card that I thought would be pretty interesting and one that I really wanted to add in this list was Twinning Staff to kind of go along with, we're already going to be trying to copy our spells. Let's copy them like 2 more times. So for me, Twinning Staff is 3. It's an artifact. If you would copy a spell, if you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time, you may choose new targets for that additional copy. Then 7 and tap it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for that copy. A lot of what I wanted to do was my typical like copy stuff. So that, and then I also wanted to try to copy specific creatures that allow us to buy back like different instant sorcery spells.
One of the things that I was interested in, by the way, Zach, I mean, our commander does cost 6. That is typically on the higher side of things as far as, if we're talking about commander tax and things like that, if you have to get, our commander out multiple times. How's your ramp package in this looking like it? Because I was definitely throwing in a multitude of artifacts as far as, your soul rings, your just
that's exactly what I wanted to do with really when you look at this deck. I think how I envisioned it was that our lands are going to be used as like, instead of actual mana, I'm looking at them as like every land is like a lotus petal in my mind, right? Because
right.
ideally we're going to be using them as fodder to copy spells. So I wanted to go very heavy in the ramp package. So like I have, I think, all the hits like Arcane Signet and Solemn Simulacrum and Burnished Heart, Wayfarer's Bauble, Cold Steel Heart, Soul Ring, Thran Dynamo, Gilded Lotus. Basically, anything that's going to allow us to just generate a ton of mana on an artifact as opposed to just having our lands. I even thought about going the route of adding in, what's it called? Orrery. It's the one that lets people play an additional land. Gear per
Ghirapur?
Ori. There it is. Yep. Gear per Ori it's a 4-cost artifact. Each player plays an additional land on each of his or her turns. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player has no cards in their hand. They draw 3 cards. So that's kind of where I was thinking ramp package wise. Just being able to ramp out a ton with our artifacts already on the field, and then we can play stuff like Dramatic Reversal, not to go like infinite or anything, but just like if we have a ton of mana on the field, we tap all of our artifacts, we can play something like Dramatic Reversal, untap all of our non-land permanents, and this can also go in hand with a couple of like the like creatures that have activated abilities like Dreamscape Artists, or even something like Walking Atlas, anything like that, so we can take advantage again of doing extra abilities.
Yeah. Did you happen to have a sapphire medallion in that package as well? Because I threw it in my list just because of the sheer amount of blue that I've got, but I don't know how
I
heavily your artifacts were.
I thought about it. My only thing was like I was also trying to be realistic. Like, I typically build very budget in mind, and Sapphire Medallion's kind of expensive. Talking about artifacts and one slipped my mind. Nyx Lotus,
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
with having there are going to be a ton of blue pips, um, with a lot of things that I want to add just to have setting on the field. Like that's another card. If we're able to untap that Nyx Lotus, like it could be absolutely absurd, and we just have access to the blue mana. Because that was something I was like noticing as I was looking at some of the cards I was pulling out, was that I had enough colorless, but it was hard to, you know, cycle in the blue that I would need. So having something like Nyx Lotus to be able to do that's really good.
So do you
Yeah.
also
I
want
mean,
Nixos Shrine to Nyx?
right.
Yeah,
I was gonna
that
say
I think that'd be
Nykthos
great too.
is probably a good pick. In the realm of lands, I was also looking at in this deck specifically, Terrain Generator does a lot of work.
Yep, I love Terrain Generator.
So Terrain Generator, it normally just taps for adding 1 to your mana pool, but you can also pay 2 and you tap it, and you may just put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. So if we are doing what our commander does, we get to go ahead and do it a little bit better. And
Yeah.
it's blue ramp at the very least.
Hmm.
That's also one that Ashen just mentioned as well.
He also mentioned Patron of the Moon and Scare Tiller.
Yeah, Scare Tiller is awesome. That's another card that I wish they would reprint in every commander set because I think it's just so good. Um, let me pull it up so I can read it directly. But a Scare Tiller is a 4 colorless artifact creature scarecrow, 1/4. When it becomes tapped, you choose one. You may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, or return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So
Yep.
very good.
Fantastic card.
Yeah.
Talking, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but I wanted to touch on this land because I just put it in my Negan deck because I forgot I had it, and I think it would go great in this deck too. It's Beseju, who shelters all. It's a legendary land, and it comes into play tap. You can tap it and pay 2 life. You add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. If that mana is spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. So if we get to a point where we're generating a ton of mana and we want to be able to do something real flashy, which is kind of what I want to do with this deck, this is going to ensure that at least one of our spells is going through without anyone being able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I'm still not entirely sure what I want that big flashy spell to be. It might just be take an extra turn, or it could be something as like, silly as like Clone Legion or something like that. But that's going to ensure we are 100% getting a spell off.
Oh, I have a strange, really powerful spell. Especially if you're going to copy it.
We also have a suggestion from chat. We have Jerry Hatrix in chat saying, how about the new call time card, Reflections of Lijara?
That would be
How do
good
you feel about that?
if we had lots of tribal stuff.
Right. I think we, at the most, primarily just have a lot of artifacts at this point, right?
Well, it depends, right? Because I was talking about some creatures that I really wanted to be able to copy and do things with. And with blue, we always see wizards in blue, right? There's a wizard that comes to mind that I think would be pretty good to use, and that's Archaeomancer. It's 2 blue blue.
Yep.
When Archaeomancer ETBs, return target insert sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So I could see, like, depending on how the deck continues to flush out, that Reflection of Lajara could actually be really good to be able to say, wizards, you play Archaeomancer, just, get an instant or sorcery back to refill your hand, and then play something small, do it again. Because that's a big thing I found with decks like this. If you're not able to restock or you're not able to draw cards well, you might have all this mana and you might be able to make multiple copies of spells, but if you don't have anything in hand, you can't do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
I think card draw is definitely important here. I have one package of cards that I want to throw out there to you guys and see what you guys think. The way that I went with it, I was thinking about Psy, Master Thopterist.
Oh,
That was one of
yeah.
the ones that I really liked for this deck specifically. So Psy Master Thopterus is a 2 and a blue, 1/4 human artificer out of M19.
Yep.
Whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. You can also pay 1 and a blue to sacrifice 2 artifacts to draw a card. So it kind of does the best of both worlds in that regard. You get some card draw, you make some artifacts, and it's all gravy. And
I do like
to
that.
go hand in hand with that, I mean, I have things in here such as inspiring statuary, so that our non-artifact spells will have improvise, as well as chief engineer, so artifact spells will have convoke. So just all these ways of artifact synergy is what I was going for. Um, I was throwing in things like Emry, Lurker of the Lock, going pretty ham on artifacts, but that's just my idea of the way that I designed this deck to go. But I don't know how you guys thought about it.
Well, I kind of like that because, like you said earlier, you mentioned Sapphire Medallion, and there are some artifacts that I had that I wanted to use that they basically just sit on the battlefield and don't do anything. So having Inspiring Statuary and having Chief, is it Chief Engineer?
Yep, chief
The
engineer.
So, a couple that I wanted to add that I think would end up being better because of those kind of cards is like Mirari, which is a 5 color legendary artifact. I've had this card in my binder for a while, and I've just been not sure where it needs to go. I have the cool like from the vaults, and it's signed by the artist and everything, and it's just like there. But I feel like for this deck, it's really awesome. So, Mirari's 5 and it's legendary artifact. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 3. If you do copy that spell, you may choose new targets for that copy. So this goes for what we're already wanting to do. So if we have Twin Staff on the battlefield and we have this and we have the mana to continue, like it could just be as simple as like something simple as like a not a brainstorm, but like a preordain or like a ponder or just anything that's going to let us draw cards and scry or anything like that. Like this is going to let us do it with our, you know, for 3, but still like we're just going to be able to get to copy spells and get that card advantage. Um, 2 other cards I think that are like absolutely necessary in this deck to really take advantage of the fact that we want to use activated abilities are Heartstone
Mm-hmm.
and Training Grounds. Heartstone is a 3 cost artifact. It says the cost of each creature ability requires an activation. Cost is reduced by 1, and they can't be less than 1. So this hits everyone's stuff, whereas Training Grounds is 1 blue enchantment that just hits our stuff, but it says the same thing. All activated abilities cost 1 less, and it can't go less than 1.
Yeah, I quite like that a lot.
Yeah.
What about you,
You know,
Lewis?
Yeah, no, that was going to be one of those things that I was going to add into the landfall triggers. Because if you then have pay 1, return 2 lands to your hand, and then do the whole retreat to Coral Helm and Walking Atlas, you're going to net
Yep.
1 mana. And then I was going to add in something to the mix like Gauntlet of Power. So Gauntlet of Power is another artifact for 5. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures of the chosen color get +1/+1. But it also has, whenever a basic land is tapped for mana of the chosen color, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of that color. So it's
Yep.
another way to net more mana off of our abilities of our commander bouncing our lands.
I had the same idea, Lotus, but with a different card. I thought about Extra Planner Lens because I completely forgot about Gauntlet of Power.
Yep. Gauntlet of Power is coming back with Time Spiral Remastered, right?
Yep.
Oh, I guess it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, buddy.
Extra planar
Let me.
lands is going up to $55 now, so it's up to you. Do you want the expensive or the new?
Yeah, Gauntlet
That's
of Power is at
that's true.
$9.99.
Yeah, like I
Pick
said,
them up now.
I completely forgot about Gauntlet of Power.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if our artifact creatures don't necessarily get the +1/+1, I think that just the fact that it just doubles our mana generation is fantastic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ashen has a couple of suggestions in chat as well, saying so fellow moonfolk. So you got Maloku, Soratami Seer, Soratami Savant, all the Soratamis. There's literally Seer, Savant, Rainshaper, Mirror Mage, Cloud Skater,
Yeah.
and then Oboro Envoy and Oboro Breeze Color. So I'm assuming that's all of them in Kamigawa Ashes.
So Meluko the Clouded Mirror is 4 blue for a Moonfolk Wizard with flying 2/4. It has pay 1, return a land you control to its owner's hand, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with flying. That is 2 blue for a 2/2 Moonfolk Wizard with flying. 3 generic, return a land you control to its owner's hand, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3.
Soratami Rainshaper is the next one.
Rainshaper.
That
Yep.
one's 2 and a blue for Moonfolk Wizard, 2/1 flying. You pay 3, return a land you control to its owner's hand. Target creature you control can't be the target spells or abilities this turn. That's really good protection.
Yep. And the next one after that, I'll read it off. Soratami Mirror Mage. Mirror Mage is 3 and a blue for a 2/1 flying Moonfolk Wizard. 3 for the activated ability, and you return 3 lands you control to the owner's hand. Return target creature to its owner's hand. So you get to go ahead and bounce 3 lands of yours, and a target creature goes back to its hand. Its owner's hand, excuse me.
Another card I think kind of has to go hand in hand with Moonfolk because we are seeing so many cards that are, obviously their abilities all return lands to our hand. And if we're playing a bunch of artifact stuff that allows us to basically use the mana that we have on field instead of our lands, is trade routes. It's 1 and a blue. It's an enchantment. You can pay 1, return target land you control to its owner's hand, and you can pay 1, discard a land card from your hand to draw a card. So this is really, I think, really good card draw for this type of a deck because with all the like mana ramp we're talking about as far as artifacts go, we're going to have the mana on field to kind of do whatever we need to do. But with constantly using any of the Moonfolk's abilities, we're going to be returning lands to our hand. So having that outlet of being like, well, and before my turn at the end step of the person in front of me, I'm just going to pay 2, discard these 2 land cards, draw 2 cards. So trade routes, I feel like, is super important for just Moonfolk. I feel like there are a lot of cards that are kind of like, if you build decks around Moonfolk, you're going to kind of need these kind of abilities.
Yeah. Another one that I was looking at, again with the ETBs of land, so landfall, was Royal Elemental.
Yeah.
So Royal
That's a spicy
Elemental
one.
is 3 blue for an elemental 3/2 with flying. Landfall. When a land enters a battlefield under your control, you may gain control of target creature for as long as you control Royal Elemental.
I love Royal Elemental. It's harder to use right now because of so many webcam games going on, but God, when I was playing with my play group, like, I played this card so much.
It's a fantastic card. It's a mean card, don't get me wrong, but it does
Nah, it's not
work,
mean.
especially with this. Yeah, okay.
It's not, because you remove it and then they get their stuff back. Like, that's fair. So another card that I wanted to add, it's also high CMC wise, but it's another one that is just like, if it sticks, it gets really obnoxious. It's Swarm Intelligence. It's 6 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast an instance or sorcery spell, you may copy that spell. You may choose new targets for that copy. So it's just another thing, like, Magical Christmas Land. If we're twinning staff and we have Swarm Intelligence on the battlefield too, everything just becomes obnoxious. You're copying copies of copies.
Yeah.
It just gets gross.
The one thing that we are doing is doing a lot of setup in this deck. Yet we
Mhm.
have no no instants or sorceries other than Dramatic Reversal. So I would like to suggest a card that fits our we need to draw some cards, but also fits the theme of the deck. And that's Gush. 4 and a blue for an instant. You may return 2 islands you control to their owner's hand rather than pay Gush's mana cost and draw 2 cards.
We're gonna need some protection, right? Because I think it's a lot of setup. I think that in order for us to survive while we're setting up, I
Yeah.
had a card in mind that I wanted to bring to attention here. I quite like Dissipation Field. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one. So
Dissipation field.
Yeah, Dissipation Field. It's a 4 mana enchantment, 2 blue. It says whenever a permanent deals damage to you, return it to its owner's hand.
Ah,
So
yes. I had to see the
yeah,
artwork for it to actually click in my mind, but yes.
yeah, this one's fantastic as far as a way of protecting us and dissuading people from having to replay things. Um, won't affect everybody. Sometimes they like their things to come back to their hand with ETB triggers, but for the most part, it'll still get the job done.
Sometimes you have to sort of take the good with the bad, but I think that's going to be more good than bad.
I agree. So I quite liked it for that reason. Um, for myself as well, I also liked the idea. Now you can nix this all you like. Maybe it doesn't fit in the deck, but I would absolutely love to put in a wrong turn into this deck. It does
I
not see enough play.
target opponent gains control of target creature. Now that's hilarious
But
because you can literally give someone else's creature to someone else. It doesn't have to be yours.
yep. Hey, you want to swing that at me? Be my guest. You'll lose it.
Yep, they'll get it.
I won't have it. It won't be going to me,
Oh,
but you'll lose it.
that's a beautiful card. I love it.
And part of the reminder text on wrong turn also says if an attacking or blocking creature changes controllers, it's removed from combat. So you can do this in response to an attack. When you have the extended version, it does not come along with that reminder text, that friendly reminder text. I was very confused when I tried playing it, and I went, "Wait, does this work the way I think it does?" Let me
Yeah.
ask someone. And then as I'm asking someone, the version I sent was this one where it had the reminder text on it. And I went, never mind.
Yep. Though the wide art does look really good.
It does. But if you are one of those people that the reminder text helps, consider getting that one, especially for this, because probably most of the people at the table will not understand that as well. As far as card draw, do you think that we have enough at this point? Because I think we're lacking a bit, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. We have barely any ways of drawing cards at all in this at this current moment.
So, what do you think about a Thopter spy network? Because I quite liked making these artifacts, so I thought it was an easier include. Because at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control an artifact, you get to create a 1/1 colorless artifact Thopter creature token with flying. We have a lot of artifacts in this, so I would hope we have at least one. And it also says whenever one or more artifact creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So you get the coastal piracy reconnaissance mission type esque, ability onto it as well.
Yeah. See, the card that I was generally looking at was a sorcery. It's more of a mid-game kind of sorcery, but the finale.
Oh, Revelation?
The finale of Revelation, yeah. So
Okay.
for X blue sorcery, draw X cards. If X is 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw X cards, untap 5 lands, and you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game, then exile this. So that refills our library, because I think we're going to need to, and we don't have to worry about hand sizes.
A card I think that would be pretty good would be Blue Sun Zenith.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With just having the ability to copy and having the ability to potentially make a lot of mana and untap mana to do it again, just making someone draw their entire deck can be enough to, win a game. You might not be able to hit every single player at the same time, but with our commander, because we have a value for X, would we be able to make someone else draw X amount of cards too if we copy that spell? Is that how that works?
As soon as you lock in X, you copy X.
Yeah, so okay, yeah, we could potentially mill the entire table. or well, not mill, but make them draw their entire decks.
Yeah.
So,
So
and Blue Sun
yeah.
Zenith is nice too because it shuffles.
Yep, you can do it over and over again if it comes
Yep.
down to it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
quite
like
like
that.
it. I think that yeah, Blue Sun Zenith is one of those underrated cards that still to this day slips under the radar as far as what it can do for you.
I
Go ahead.
had a crazy win con. If we are really going to go all in on copy effects, copy spells, multiple copies, and we're going to end up copying, I don't know, 5, 6 spells, how about Eternal Dominion? Eternal Dominion is a sorcery for 7 blue, blue, blue. It says, search target opponent's library for an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card. Put that card into play under your control, then that player shuffles their library. Then it says epic. For the rest of the game, you can't play spells. At the beginning of each of your upkeeps, copy this spell except for the epic ability. So if you've copied this 5 times in your upkeep, you're going to search for 5 things.
I was wondering how that would work.
Yeah, let's say you copy that 5 times. You're searching for 5 artifacts, 5 creatures, 5
lands.
enchantments, or lands.
Yeah, and if we're doing mostly abilities, who worries about casting the rest of our deck?
I like that. I think it's very cool, and it has epic. It's just the 5 cards that have epic, right?
It's one of a very few selection, and I've never seen it being used, and this was the deck I wanted this for. I was like, nope, that's it. This is the deck. Let's go epic.
Since we are playing a spell slinger copy spells stuff, I think I don't necessarily want to play it, but it is something I think that should be noted that we could play Aetherflux Reservoir.
Sure.
Just because, with the type of deck that this is, being able to, we're not necessarily wanting to storm off, but if our commander's 6 CMC and we're doing a lot of setup to basically get to late game, because that's I think where this deck really is going to shine, is that you've been they have a 6 CMC 4/4, like they're just returning a bunch of lands to their hand, so I think late game is where we are going to shine with this deck. So having the ability to play Aetherflux Reservoir and maybe generate some life off of casting 4 spells a turn or 3 spells a turn, something like that, I think is something to kind of note. Like, you can be degenerate with the card for sure, but ultimately I think it's could be using this deck, to help us stabilize.
I mean, yes, we can. I feel like we can get there, but we're going to take our time getting there, right? So, like you said, it's going to be towards the later end of the game that this deck really shines. Depending on how many artifacts we have, what do you guys feel about things like Mystic Forge and Unwinding Clock? Because I think Unwinding Clock can do some work if we have a bunch of Thopters. And especially if we just have Mystic Forge just able to cast from the top card of our library, as long as it's an artifact.
I like Unwinding Clock a lot more than Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge, I feel like, is kind of it's a very strong card, but it really depends on how heavy we go artifact wise.
Right.
I'd rather have access to Unwinding Clock and not use Mystic Forge and maybe look for something else.
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
I think if we're doing more spell slinging and instants and sorceries, I think that's definitely the route. But I think that yeah.
So Unwinding Clock was 4 mana for an artifact that untaps all artifacts you control during each other player's untap step.
Since we're talking about Unwinding Clock, 2 lands I think we should add then should be Seat of the Synod and Darksteel Citadel.
Yeah, make some artifact lands.
Land.
Darksteel Citadel is going to be indestructible anyways, but it's an artifact land, and Seat of the Synod is just taps for blue, but still they're artifact lands. We have Unwinding Clock, that's just 2 more mana we can use, and that's an additional blue mana that we will always have every
Are we looking to
Um,
net a lot of mana?
well, I
I
think
mean,
Because
I think so.
if we are, why don't we
well,
have Horizon Stone?
I quite like it as far as unwinding clock and things like that, but just depends how many artifacts we're going. I mean, if we have Gilded Lotus and Soul Ring out, then there's some colored mana that we're going to be getting,
Yeah.
as
Well,
well
if
as
that
just
Horizon Stone would be great because we could also use Gear pour.
horror. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And then it taps for we can use it as any color, right?
Right. Just to protect all these, what do you guys feel? Because I just think it'd be funny. Darksteel Forge. Do we just jam one in there and just protect all our artifacts with some indestructible?
I think it's kind of necessary, honestly, because we're getting to the point where um, you know, you look at what colors, have the themes that they have and how they ramp, and blue is just like we have artifacts ramp in blue, right? So it's, I think, a necessary evil to be able to basically protect them, and that's kind of how we're going to be able to get late game and be able to keep up with some of these decks. If you're sitting at a table and someone's playing like Corvold and you're playing this, like you want to be able to ensure that you're going to be able to make them draw their entire deck whether they want to or not, or do something else silly and take literally everything on the field.
Yeah, I think
So
for me, I just want a magical Christmas land, right? I think I just want to have Chief Engineer out with a bunch of Thopters and just cheat out a Darksteel Forge for tapping 9 Thopters. That's just me, though.
I'm
yeah,
quite liking. So Jojo, welcome. They've suggested Cannon because of the clock.
Yeah, yep.
that would
That was
be,
gonna
yeah.
be my next suggestion as well. I love that JoJo already beat me to it here. Yeah, Lux Cannon,
Yeah,
Unwinding Clock.
just
So
nuke something every single rotation of the board.
Well, it's nice too because it's very political, right? Like I said, we're looking at playing this deck being a very like late game kind of deck. No matter how we scale the CMC, it's just with what we're going to want to do. I believe it'll just be late game stuff. So having that Lux Cannon on the field is just kind of like, look, let me do my thing, guys. Let me just play the game. But if you're not going to let me do that, I assure you won't have pieces to play with yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
for those that aren't aware, Lux Cannon is a 4 mana artifact. It can tap to put a charge counter on Lux Cannon, and then you can also tap it and remove 3 of those charge counters from Lux Cannon, and you just destroy a target permanent. Does not matter. Does not care what permanent.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and you can keep charging it as well.
every upkeep it'll untap with Unwinding Clock.
So if
One
you,
rotation around the table, and you'll have a Lux Cannon cocked and ready to go.
yep,
With all the artifacts we were talking about too, I think Phyrexian Metamorph is probably something we should look at adding into this deck too. If I remember correctly, it's 3 in a Phyrexian blue. When it ETBs, it copies target artifact or creature you control
on the battlefield.
on the battlefield,
Mm.
and I forget what its power and toughness is,
It's
but
a
that
0/0.
doesn't matter. Oh yeah, that's right. So, I mean, that's um, another potentially Lux Cannon, or that's another like something silly like a Thran Dynamo or Gilded Lotus or just another creature. Maybe you decided that you wanted to put Blightsteel Colossus in this deck because we're already running so much artifacts. We might as well play the biggest, nastiest artifact of all.
Yeah.
So now you have
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, you can convoke that out too. I like
Yeah.
it. Speaking of which, but speaking of protection, rather, Ashen is also saying that Padim, Mr. Big Head, for card draw and artifact protection. Yeah, my
Yeah.
friend Pops loves to call him Big Head.
3 and a blue
Yeah.
for a 1/4 Vidalcan Artificer. Artifacts you control have hexproof. At the beginning of your
Yeah.
upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest converted mana cost or tied, draw a card.
Now, I mean, we have Darksteel Forge, potentially a Blightsteel. I mean, I want to run this jank card so bad now, so I'm gonna bring this up. One with the machine. It's a sorcery for 4 mana out of M19 that says draw cards equal to the highest converted mana cost among artifacts you control. Can you imagine copying that spell and drawing what? Blight Seals 13 times, however many times we copy it?
Yeah, that could. Yep.
Um, so we are getting very heavy into artifacts. It's not an artifact deck, but it's kind of becoming one, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because we're using the artifacts typically as like, fodder to get where we want to go. So since we're doing that, there are 2 cards I kind of just want to bring up. So we should probably talk about Mycosynth, and we should probably talk about Urza.
So
I
Mycosynth Lettuce.
Yep. I thought you were going with Steel Overseer.
I mean, that's an option as well, but so Mycosynth would be nice because you just turn everything into artifacts, and you're kind of okay with stuff,
True.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if Padim becomes the artifact as well, gives itself
hexproof
hexproof.
and Magical Christmas Land. If we have Darksteel Forge out, it's hexproof indestructible.
Yep.
No, Magical Christmas Land would be somebody casting a Vandal Blast Overloaded, and we just Narset's Reversal that thing.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
also true. But Mycosynth
What's up, Benson?
Mycosynth I think would be really cool. It's one of those cards that gets a really bad rap because it can do very degenerate things for sure, but I think it's such an interesting card because we do not see cards like that ever. And like I said, Urza is one of those things that we could just get a giant construct, which means if our commander's been nuked multiple times, that finally we just go on the beatdown game plan. Like when you have a construct that's maybe, I don't know, like 13-13 or like 10-10, that's suddenly a problem.
See, you want to go ahead and have those big creatures. I just want to have Sai just make a bunch of Thopters that are just going to get
That's
Overseer and a Unwinding Clock all day long.
That's also
peck all day long.
Well, so my mindset is if we can using our artifacts multiple different ways. If we have Sai and we have 5, 6, 7 Thopters out, and we have Urza, suddenly if we don't have any way to use them as mana, Urza is just another way to use them as mana. So if our Inspiring Statuary or Chief Engineer aren't on the battlefield, Urza makes them another way to use them as mana. Because all I want to do is copy spells a billion times.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
The one thing that I have noticed is we're running close to 8. Well, we've got 83 cards. Yet we have 4 instants and 3 sorceries. So we have yet to find any targets to truly copy and make this worth copying.
Sure.
So
I mean, I mentioned Narset's Reversal. I think that's a good one here.
Yeah, Narset's Reversal would be a fantastic card, because if someone does a Cyclonic Rift, just send it right back at them.
I think more protection too that we should probably look at. Our typical counterspell, we're in blue, so that's not going to be an issue to cast. I always put Negate.
I reckon instead of the traditional, hear me out. Let's do one that's more. Let's do one that's more on theme.
Stoic Rebuttal
and do Reprieve.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Deprive. 2
Deprive.
It's 2 blue for an instant. As an additional cost to cast Deprive, return a land you control to its owner's hand, and then counter target spell.
Yeah.
I like it.
So it does the whole thing of returning bouncing lands, but also it's just a 2 mana counter spell.
What was the one I was about to suggest? I think Pongify is probably good in this deck.
That's another removal. Yep.
It's another one that if we copy that's could be huge for us. So
yeah, nice and cheap and copied a bunch of times. Yeah, I'm on board.
I want some cheap instant speed card draw too.
So
that we can copy.
So I want to throw in a janky counter spell.
Okay.
Assert Authority. It's 5 blue and a blue for this counter spell, but it has affinity for artifacts. The spell costs 1 less to play for each artifact you control, and it counters the target spell. And if it's countered that way, it's removed from the game. It is exiled.
I like that.
That's not
I
bad.
have
I love improvising affinity so much. It's just such a fun mechanic that I would love to play that style all day. I know that artifacts and blue get the bad rap because of Urza lately, but if you do it the right way, oh, it's so much fun.
I'm
Ashen's
just
in
looking
chat
at
saying,
Jojo actually. Jojo was
yeah.
saying adding a card that will let you take extra turns.
I mean, how degenerate do we want to go? Yep, we can
Yeah.
certainly do that. I mean, inspiring statuary. So artifacts will tap for non artifact spells, make it cheaper, and we could just 2 mana extra turns if we really want to go that route.
I think if we do the extra turns, I think we should just do the 1 extra turn spell and probably do Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
That way it's just like it's there. You know what I mean? If it's not answered, it's just there, just waiting to come back. I think we should look at putting, I believe it's called Turnabout, into the deck. I can't remember the exact wording, and my PC
so
is...
it's 2 blue for an instant. Tap or untap all artifact, creatures, or lands target player control.
Yeah,
so
instant for 4.
Yeah, Turnabout seems like it'd be really good, especially if we copy it and can just float mana or blow up or do multiple, charges of Lux Cannon or float mana, whatever,
Yeah, seems reasonable.
Green gets Seedborn Muse. Why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Han's favorite card ever.
What are you talking about?
You only play Seedborn Muse in every deck. Han, you're playing red. Yeah, Seedborn Muse.
In every green deck.
So
It's a good
Mirrodin
card.
Besieged was one that I just saw in chat.
Oh yeah, Mirrodin Besiege is great.
Yeah. Mirrodin Besieged and
So
Ashen
2 and a
also
blue.
mentioned-
As it enters the battlefield, choose is it Mirrodin or Phyrexian? Mirrodin.
Mhm.
Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 colorless mere artifact creature token, or Phyrexian. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card, then discard a card. Then, if there are 15 or more artifact cards in your graveyard, target opponent loses the game.
Yeah.
See, I really like that card too because it can be super political. Just like, hey, this guy's a problem. Let me deal with them. It's very fun. I don't think it's played enough.
Yeah, and depending on what stage of the game you pick this up at, you can just play it for either mode and it's relevant at pretty much any stage of the game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ashton says in chat, Raven form, reality shift as far as removals.
So Raven Form's that new one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Raven Form, 2 and a blue, sorcery with Foretell. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. So you foretell it for 2, and it's just a single blue when you cast it in a later turn.
Yep. Sorcery speed. So keep that timing restriction in mind. But
Yep.
yeah.
And reality shift.
So reality shift is just exile target permanent, I believe, right?
Exile target creature. Its controller manifests the top card of their library.
There we go.
It's almost a Chaos Warp.
Yeah, well, we make do with what we can in mono blue, right?
Yeah, we try our best.
So there's a card I wanted to talk about putting in the deck too that we kind of went on a tangent with artifacts, so I kind of forgot about it. But I really wanted to play God Eternal Kefnet, 2 blue for legendary creature, Zombie God, 4/5 flying. You may reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it. Whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card this way, copy that card and you may cast the copy. The copy costs 2 less to cast. And when God Eternal Kefnet dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library third from the top.
Yeah.
So that just another way that we can copy spells. With our commander being so expensive, Kefnet will come out potentially 2 turns before. So having the ability to kind of still do what we want to do with the deck by making multiple copies of spells, it's kind of, I think, strong and should be used.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we need to try and get some more instant sorceries because, unlike us, we've gone on a tangent.
Yes. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about paradoxical outcome? So, paradoxical outcome is an instant. It's 3 and a blue, and you get to return any number of target non-land, non-token permanents you control to their owner's hands. And you will draw a card for each card returned to your hand this way. So, you can use it in the form of protection for yourself and as well as some draw effects, or you can also use it just to get some value from drawing and getting some of these artifacts replayed out, replay some of your artifacts and bring them right back in.
Yeah, that seems quite a good way of doing that.
Yeah. Zach, how do you feel about paradoxical outcome? Because that's
I do like paradoxical outcome. The card
Yeah.
draw off of that's ridiculous.
Yep. And if we have Mirrodin besieged out, for example, we can replay our artifacts and get some more, artifacts to boot.
Yeah.
Same with Sai. Any of those effects would work.
2 cards that I wanted to talk about adding, they're not very flashy, but I think they're kind of, once again, necessary. Opt. I love playing Opt in any blue deck, and Snap seems really good in this deck.
I like Snap better than Opt in this deck specifically, I think.
Oh, that new artwork for Opt is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. I just like Opt because, I like Brainstorm, don't get me wrong, but most of the time I feel like if we want to copy Opt, it's going to let us see more cards than what Brainstorm would technically let us see, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I like Opt a little bit more than Brainstorm for this deck. But those were 2 that I was kind of talking about. I like Snap a lot. It's another target that, if we copy, can become super belligerent.
Yeah, return target creature to its owner's hand, untap up to 2 lands.
Yeah, that just becomes super belligerent, I feel like.
Yeah.
I just thought of
I might
a
actually put
creature
that in
that
my
I
Charter
always
deck.
I just thought of a creature / ability that's interesting. What do you guys feel about Spellskite? I hadn't thought about it till just now.
Spellskite.
So
that is a
how would that work?
2 generic for a 0/4 horror. Pay a blue or it's Phyrexian blue. Change a target of target spell or ability to Spellskite.
Lotus and Zach, I think I actually really like this suggestion from chat. Jojo just suggested an Omnispell Adept. I always forget about this card.
Omnispell.
Oh
Adept.
yeah,
4 and a blue for the 3/4 human wizard out of Guilds of Ravnica. This thing never got enough love. 2 and a blue and tap, and you may just cast an instant or sorcery from your hand without paying its mana cost.
Wait, so
we don't have to.
You're
pay
telling
for
me
epic?
for 3 mana I can cast. Oh, where is it? Eternal Dominion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
And then you can
JoJo's
copy.
a legend.
JoJo's a legend. I love this card so much right now.
Yeah, and that JoJo kind of, by suggesting that card, kind of brings up what we were talking about earlier when we got off our tangent onto artifacts, is that we want to do everything as cheap as possible. So being able to use our adept to play this for 3 instead of, what's that, 10? No, 9.
No, it's
And
10.
then okay,
It's 10.
It's
yeah,
10.
it's not
so for
expropriate.
3
You
for
can throw that in there with this too.
so 3 for 10, or instead of saying 10, pay 3 and then pay 2 more additionally to get 2 copies. Like, yeah, that's what we need. Good
Yeah, you do
job.
that all day.
Yeah, I like
Jerry
that.
Matrix is also suggesting a rewind, maybe, as far as a instant. But yeah, I quite
Rewind.
like.
2 blue, counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands.
One of the card draw effects that I had as well, Vidalcan Archmage. Do we already have one of those in there? I don't believe we've mentioned it.
No.
Mm-mm.
What? Vidalcan Archmage is a Vidalcan wizard, 2 blue for 0/2, and whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card.
I think that's solid. I think it's very good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know how we're doing on cards, but excuse me, but another
So-
way I kind of
We're at exactly 100, so
Hey, we're doing good.
we're doing well.
well, this card I want to add because it's a way I want to win the game. I don't know if you added it earlier or not, but Clone Legion.
Not yet.
It's one of those cards I always want to play, but I can never find a deck that I'm like super like, yes, this is the deck. But I feel like this one could be because Clone
Yeah.
Legion is 7 blue. First sorcery, for each creature target player controls, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So Magical Christmas Land, maybe we can copy this once. Super Magical Christmas Land, we play it with our Adept and copy it a ton of times.
Yep.
And
Omnispell Adept is doing some work.
Also, I just want to point out, in the next podcast from the Into the 99, we talk a little bit about this card, and let me just say, Magical Christmas Land is easier to achieve than you think.
Mhm.
Well, that's a card I'd like as one of our finishers for this deck. It feels, I think, the issue that mono blue or the bad rap mono blue gets is like there are a lot of wins that we do ones end up being instant speed or something that just doesn't feel like you can really interact with. I think if you're setting down the table and you're playing against this big like elf ball deck and you clone Legion them, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, and suddenly you swing out the table instead of them, that doesn't seem like as bad of a feel bad to lose to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah,
quick
I would agree with that.
interruption. Jojo's also suggesting Requellery Tower for all the card draw that we've got. I'm
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that in the form of
Mhm.
Reliquary Tower or Thought Vessels, and I was actually even gonna go so far as to include the 0 mana artifact. What is it? Book. I can't remember it off the top of my head now.
Nope, spellbook,
Is it?
0
No, it's an
mana. You
artifact.
have no maximum hand size.
Yeah.
It's just spellbook.
What am I thinking? I think another card that's kind of expensive CMC wise, and just thinking about more protection stuff. Inundate, I think is how you say it.
3 blue for a sorcery. Return all non-blue creatures to their owner's hand.
Yep. I just put this in my Orvar deck, and I think it'd be good here too.
Inundate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That will hit our colorless creatures, right? But
There's
could
not
be good, could
many.
be bad. It just, yeah, it just depends.
Now, I know Cyclonic Rift is a frowned upon card. What about River's Rebuke? We are copying
I'm fine
it.
with.
So
Yeah,
we
I
end
think
up
River's Rebuke is fine.
we'll end up doing a Cyclonic Rift. I just feel that it's not going to be received as harshly.
I think there's a difference, but between playing Cyclonic Rift for 7 or playing River's Rebuke for what is it? It starts
6.
off as 6 CMC, right?
6.
So 6. So for 10 CMC potentially, and you have to put 4 lands back.
No,
At
no,
worst-
no.
At
No,
worst
no, no, no.
case.
You know that JoJo's laughing at you saying, no, we're only paying 3 for that sorcery.
Yeah.
Oh, right, right. So, so depending on your board state, I think Rivers Rebuke is fine because sometimes, like you know, I don't see this being if you're sitting down and playing this deck, I think it could be very strong, but I don't see it being a very like super high power level deck, right? So if you're sitting down at a table and you're playing with three other people and one person's deck isn't doing very well and the other person's isn't, but you got the arch enemy at the table, being able to set them back, I think is going to make for a better like overall experience for the table as opposed to cyclonic rift and suddenly no one has stuff. So I think Rivers Rebuke is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Hey, so Zach, I think I have an idea based off of what we've just been talking about, though. How do you feel about a mnemonic deluge in this deck now?
Demonic Deluge. Um,
If we're casting it for 3, so 6 blue, 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 blue normally, but it's a sorcery that exiles a target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard. A graveyard. Interesting. Copy
Mhm.
that card 3 times. You may cast the copies without paying their mana cost, and you exile Mnemonic Deluge.
I mean,
Ooh.
I'm fine with it. I think it's big and splashy, and I think that's really what we're going for here.
Exactly. I think with the package we have, I think Omnispell Adept actually needs a couple more big splashy targets, right?
Yeah. Also, another big splashy spell. I was gonna go for Seagate Restoration.
Oh yeah. Let's
Seagate
go ahead and add
Restoration.
that right away.
4 blue, blue, blue. Sorcery. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game.
I like it.
And at very worst, it's a bolt land. Pay 3 life, comes in untapped.
Yeah.
Um,
And man, if we have a if we have an inspiring statuary out, good lord.
I like it.
I
I like
think
it quite a bit.
we might end up
Actually,
drawing our deck.
that may be a consideration, honestly, at this point.
Oh, is it going to
Is
have
it
to be
just
a
me, or is
Thassa's Oracle?
inspiring
Nah, I don't think
Lotus?
we do that.
Lotus, I don't think you have an inspiring statuary in here though right now.
Not at the moment.
I think it's so good with the amount of artifacts we have.
Yep. That's the improvised one, so yeah.
There's a card I really want to add, but I'm just worried the CMC is too high and it's just not going to work.
Zach,
I mean,
we
our
have
current
9,
mana
10, 9, 7 off of Seagate.
our mana
Throw it
curve's
in
at
there, my
4.
man.
I was thinking cast through time. It's 4 blue, blue, blue for an enchantment. Instant and sorcery spells you control have rebound.
Yep.
No, keep in mind, God Eternal Kefnet is in this deck for all of these.
Yeah, this is gonna be silly.
This is a fun deck. This is a fun, silly deck. It'll
So-
do some powerful stuff, but it's definitely silly.
I think all right, I think one more card and well maybe two more cards probably, and then
It
we
won't.
should try to clean it up. All right, last two I want to mention: Rings of Brightheart, because now they're super super cheap. Rings of Brightheart's 3 cost artifacts. Whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2. If you do copy that ability, you may choose new copies for the target.
And is the other one Lithoform Engine?
No, it's actually Primal Amulet. Because
Oh.
that's probably really needed in this deck. Instant and sorcery spell. It's a 4 cost artifact. Instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. Then, if there are 4 or more charge counters on it, you transform it. It becomes Primal Wellspring. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. When mana is spent to cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may copy it. Choose new targets for the copy. You may choose new targets. I think those two are just great.
You don't want Lithoform Engine?
I just think I want to love that card, but it just for whatever reason, like I feel like it'll get lightning rotted before those two will.
Yep, I would agree with that. Lithoform engine is one of those.
But we
Yeah, you're in a mono blue deck and you're gonna play a lithoform. No, we're getting rid of that right now.
fair, but we do have
I
a
think
dark
it's
steel
too
forge.
much. Right, but I think it's just too much of a lightning rod, if you ask me. But that being said, I think that's up for debate. Now,
I did
one
have a
card-
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
With Rings of Brightheart, would we have to return 2 lands again, or is it we're just copying it without?
No.
If we were to use,
No, returning the lands is a cost.
okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, everything before the colon happens, and then everything after the colon gets copied, basically.
Yeah.
I figured. I just wanted to be sure before I got too excited. You know, that happens
No,
sometimes.
it's good for clarification purposes too, for sure.
Yep.
So I had one card. It's another artifact, but I don't see a lightning greaves or a swiftfoot boots here, so I'm gonna suggest this one instead. Nurok stealth
Stealth suit. Yeah.
Yes.
Stealth suit, sweet. Instant speed. Attach is always good.
So
Yeah.
2 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature cannot be the target of spells or abilities, so it gets shroud. Pay blue, and you can attach Nurok stealth suit to a target creature you control. Typically, it equips for 1, but that ability allows you to, on the fly, switch it to a different creature at instant speed.
There's one more protection spell I'd like to add. We're in blue, so Lazotep plating.
I like it.
Lazotep plating is 1 and a blue for an instant. You get to amass 1, so you get to make a zombie army and put a +1/+1 counter on it, so it's a 1/1. And then permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn, and we gain hexproof till end of turn.
There were a few lands lands I wanted to mention that we had it. Mystic Sanctuary.
Yep.
Seems pretty solid.
I think I saw that in chat, so I apologize if I missed that.
Mirror Pool is also one I like running, and people kind of forget about its existence. So I'll read that one. It's Mirror Pool. It enters the battlefield tap. You can tap it to add a colorless. You can pay 2 and a colorless and tap it and sacrifice it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Or you can pay 4 and a colorless, tap it, sacrifice Mirror Pool. Put a token on the battlefield as a copy of target creature you control. Riptide Laboratory would also be another good one, I feel like. And it's considerably cheaper than what it used to be. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can pay 1 a blue and tap it, return target wizard you control to its owner's hand. And the last one I wanted to mention was Academy Ruins.
Yeah, let's go ahead and draw that right up.
Now, I believe it's time just to sift down and get it to 100 and call it a deck.
I don't see a Mystic Reflection.
It's in. We have 110 cards. We need to go. So we'll start with the enchantments, I believe.
I don't necessarily feel like it's out of place, but I think Dissipation Field, while it is very strong, could potentially be cut.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I would argue that Arcane Signet might not be necessary in a mono blue deck.
Are we really going to utilize Aetherflux Reservoir as much as it could be?
No, that can go.
So Horizon Stone is the next one that's kind of a hit or miss for me.
I think it just I think this is a card that would end up you'd have to play test the deck a few times to be sure, because I can see where it's like situational, but with the potential of mana that we could have and the kind of ways that we're wanting to win or potentially wanting to win, Horizon Stone could be very, very like useful.
So are you
generic
happy
mana
for
might not
me
be
in
the
that
worst thing.
instance to cut from the main deck and we'll put it in a maybe board? So it's a cut, but we'll keep it.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't necessarily need Mycosynth Lattice either. It's just one of those cards that, I thought could be really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could probably
I'm
go
not
into the
sold
maybe
on that.
section as well.
Can we cut one more land because we have something that flips into a land? Was my thought.
Yeah, we can cut
Well-
down to 34.
what I was getting at too is like what's nice about Primal Amulet is it's a you may remove the counters to transform it, so you can keep it as a pseudo anthem to make your spells cheaper or your instant sorcery cheaper, or you can make it become a copy spell. So
Right.
I think it's really strong. But yeah, I think going down to 34 lands would probably be fine with this staying in.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sold we need the spell book. We're not a storm deck, so maybe we
Yep.
don't need the 0 mana artifact that gives us no maximum hand size.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a thought vessel in that instance would be strictly better as far as both replacing arcane signet and giving us the maximum hand size.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I'll just pop that in instead. That's a good upgrade. That leaves us with 4 cards to cut. I actually think Spellskite is for consideration here.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah, I like the card, but I didn't know. I was just throwing it out there as a potential card, but I think that Spellskite can definitely go as well. All right, I think in the sorceries we can get rid of one with a machine at this point,
Yeah.
because I think the highest CMC artifact is definitely 9 at Darksteel Forge, and everything else below that is 6. No, not even. We cut Mycosynth Lattice, so yeah, it should be 5.
In that case, then, did you want to remove Assert Authority then?
We can.
I kind of want to get rid of Gush. Gush
Yeah.
or Deprive.
I think Gush is a free. It's a way of drawing cards for free.
Mm-hmm.
I think Deprive might be better to go.
Okay. Yeah, maybe Deprive. Yeah, I say we move Deprive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Deprive and call it a day.
That's 100 cards. The mana curve is at 4.05. Loads of copy shenanigans. Yeah.
Did we get there, Zach? Did we get there? Oh, one land I would like to add, and we can cut an island or something. That would be very good. That just came to mind. I think Inventor's Fair is really good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, the thing is, I've just come up with a land that I want to put in as well. Castle.
Do tell.
Castle Vantress.
Yeah, do it. Cut islands, put them in.
Because the Scry 2 is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we need to stop.
I'm happy with this. Where are we
Yeah.
at? I'm curious where we're at price-wise. That's not bad.
I'm so glad that Eternal Dominion stayed. This card is beautiful.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
you
no way.
can-
There's
I
no
think
way
you
that
can
card
thank
was going
JoJo.
anywhere.
I think you can thank JoJo for that. Omnispell Adept just cheating that out makes it so good.
But I think this deck is super sweet. And I got to build it with you guys, which is what I was really excited
buddy.
about.
Thanks very much, Zach, for offering us the opportunity to brew this deck with you instead of just going off and do it yourself. It's been actually really fun to do this.
No, thank you guys. I absolutely love Brewin It Live, and as soon as you contacted me, I was just like, oh my god, I've had this one I've wanted to build, but I didn't know how to do how I wanted to do it. So get to build a deck with 2 of my closest friends is just it's the best.
But if you like this and you want to see more, go to our YouTube channel, Into the 99, and you'll see all the previous ones. Every Monday, a new one gets uploaded. But if you want to see other content from us, go to intothe99.com, which is your one-stop hub for all articles, YouTube videos, and access to our Discord, where you can chat to us and all this lot in chat. Even send us some messages of future brews that you want us to show off. Or just show us decks that you've brewed, and we'll happily look at them, or even play games with you. We don't mind. Also, we have Patreon, where you can help us financially, or you can go to our merch store where all the links are below. So you don't just get into the 99, you wear it. That's Benson right there.
Yes.
But I think that's it from us tonight. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us, Zach.
Oh, thank you for having me. I absolutely had a great time.
Come back soon, anytime.
Yeah. But otherwise, thank you all, and good night.